Allied nations, food is a weapon of freedom, a weapon to be used in the interest of the people. Here is the answer to fascism. The great North American continent, with its vast potential food supplies, is making this answer mean something, sending more and more food to the United Nations. We are feeding larger and larger armies abroad, taking on greater food responsibilities with each new year of war. Meat, a perishable commodity, long-term in production, is one of the hardest food contracts to fill. Large defense projects, such as the Alaskan Highway, make sudden demands on our meat supply. The armies at home and abroad are taking increasing quantities of food each year. We are exporting meat to places where former food supply was cut off, places like Newfoundland and the British West Indies. To prisoners of war, dependent largely on us for food to maintain health. The aim of the Canadian Red Cross is to ship one parcel of food to each prisoner of war per week. Australia, too, maintains a Red Cross supply through Canada. One of the main reasons why our meat supply is rationed is our bacon contract with Britain. Britain is dependent on Canada for about 85% of her total bacon supply. The civilian ration of bacon in Britain is 4 ounces per person per week. Their total animal protein ration, including bacon, eggs, fish, and cheese, is approximately 2 pounds per person per week. Our Canadian soldiers are fed from the British contract. Our farmers are producing at least 50% more meat than they produced before the war. Yet so great is the need for our meat abroad that there isn't enough left to meet the steadily increasing home consumption. If we are to keep our promise to feed the Allies and the armies, we must cut down our home demands. We must share our meat, make it go round, give every family in Canada an equal amount, for home consumption of meat has increased with rapid strides since the beginning of war. Workers with full employment need food and are consuming more than they have for years. So sharply did the demand for meat rise in the first years of the war that supply fell behind. By 1942, localized shortages began to appear. Especially was this true of points farthest from production centers. Half our meat is produced in the western provinces and is a long way from our heavily populated cities in the east. Conditions were increasing where shoppers, women doing full-time duty as munition or office workers, and with family responsibilities, had little to choose from when they arrived at shops late in the afternoon, or nothing at all in some localities farthest from the source of supply. Women with time and money to shop had been the rounds earlier in the day and bought their customary amount of meat, which was more animal protein than was needed for the health of their families. With prices fixed at certain levels, normal restraint on buying did not exist, and home consumption soared. Without some kind of restraint, demand for meat would have continued to rise in 1943 to a figure beyond supply. If we were to fulfill our promises to supply the United Nations and armies, we must cut our home consumption by 20% of the 1942 figure. To do this, rationing was the answer, in order to ensure an equal share of the national supply for each family. The rationing of meat presented a difficult organizational problem. To ensure against black markets, a government stamp was made compulsory. Without this stamp, no meat can be legally sold in the market. The second step, to arrive at a coupon value for each carcass and break that down into cuts and groupings. A series of tests were made, keeping in mind as much as possible the housewives' normal buying habits. After weeks of weighing and averaging, the test resulted in a coupon value chart to be a guide to housewives. The next step was to standardize the method of cutting to fit the coupon value. Government men and butchers were called into centers to attend meat cutting schools to learn some of the new problems of cutting which arose out of rationing.
In order to satisfy the ration coupon, it was necessary to break this rump roast into 4 different cuts, square end, and with the round end divided into 3 cuts. We end up with a 14-pound roast divided into weights running 3 to 4 pounds. Now we come to another problem roast, the 6 and 7 bone rib. We separate it by breaking at the natural seam and making a boneless roast of the entire cut. The outside roll is an ideal pot roast. Remove the blade bone, making a roll of it. And by boning, we can cut it to suit any ration coupon value. After boning, skewer this roast, making an incision, and it makes 2 ideal pot roasts, weighing 2.5 to 3 pounds each. We do the same with the inner roll, which is a choice oven roast. The choice is roast and the rib. Cut this in half, and we now have 4 ideal roasts ranging about 3 pounds each from a 15-pound cut.
A plan for standardized cutting so that butchers would have a pattern to follow, a guide to cutting that would fit the coupon needs of their customers. From the butcher's point of view,
thinner steaks, smaller roasts. We butchers might as well recognize the need for changed methods to further the rationing program. There is no question in my mind that the butcher's ability to follow standardized cutting methods, to think in terms of percentages, these will decide, to a large measure, the success of the rationing plan. Our job is to make the meat go farther. To make, for instance, 2 small roasts where formerly there was 1. The butcher and the women he serves, on them rests a good deal of the responsibility for the success of rationing. What I don't like to hear is remarks like this.
I don't think there's any real need for rationing. My husband says there's plenty of meat in the country.
Feed our own people first, I say, and ship the rest if there's any left.
Women can, by an intelligent approach to the ration plan, help themselves and the butcher. If a woman arrives at the butcher shop in a hurry, unprepared, with no plan for the weekend's needs in relation to the rationing, aiming to buy what she's always had for the weekend, what chance has the butcher got to help her? Yes, that will do nicely, she says, and never stops to think about her coupons. Then she is dismayed and angry with the butcher because the meat takes all her coupons for the week. Why didn't you tell me, she says. You should have told me. How was I to know, he says. She learns her lesson dearly, perhaps at the expense not only of coupons, but of waste meat. Women should plan at home, using the chart, something like this.
I'm glad I carried that coupon forward from last week. I can get a little 3-pound roast this week, perhaps a wing roast, or a sirloin tip, or a rolled rib. The roast would do for Sunday and Monday. And Tuesday, too, if I make a meat roly-poly with lots of gravy. Wednesday, I could buy some veal cutlets, or some flank steak, or a nice piece of round steak. If I make up the coupon value with minced meat, I could make a casserole with spaghetti on Thursday. And for the rest of the week, I have 1 coupon left. I could use it, or save it and have a vegetable plate instead of meat.
2 in a family. That's perhaps the hardest group of all to plan for. Plan for the week. Plan to carry forward a coupon and so allow for a roast. planned to use so much out of the different groupings and unrationed meats, and occasionally alternatives.
Now, I wonder what we could have. I know. If we bought chops for Sunday dinner, they'd weigh about half a pound. We could make up the weight with sausages for Saturday night.
Yes, and if there were any sausages left over, we could have them with the chops on Sunday as a mixed grill.
That's an idea. On Monday, let's have liver. It's not rationed, and we'd save a coupon. Tuesday, we could buy 3/4 of a pound of stewing meat, save part of it for curry on Wednesday.
Thursday, I think we could manage a couple of minute steaks. If we couldn't get steaks, we'd better have hamburger and make up the couponed weight with some cold ham or bacon for another supper.
If you are the mother of a family working outside the home, the planning is a special responsibility in cooperation with the rest of the family.
Now, if we had a nice pot roast for dinner on Sunday, Bruce, a blade roast would be good. Or we could have a square-end rump cut. Or a chuck roast is an economical buy. That would do for Sunday and Monday. We could have a kidney and beef loaf on Tuesday. 1 pound of Hamburg steak and a beef kidney would make enough for 2 days. There would be 3 coupons left. We could have some steak, or stewing meat, or we'll be all right for the rest of the week. Now, John, if you'll speak to the butcher to save a pot roast, I'll pick it up when I come home from work.
Okay.
And on Wednesday, I'll leave the meat pie already mixed. And Bruce, you put it into the oven at 5 o'clock. Have you decided who is to do the shopping this week?
Guess it's me.
Well then, you'll need these, Jim.
Remember that when you have seen the last of your coupons, it is only the first time they have been handled. The butcher must keep track of every one. On his turnover of coupons depends his business. As he says, no coupons, no more meat. Before he can get a fresh meat supply, he must turn in the coupons, either directly to his wholesaler, or he can turn them into his bank and receive a coupon voucher. This is his authorization to receive the value in meat. Or if his normal gross sales of food each month exceed $5,000 a year, he must establish a bank account. His coupons are treated in the same way as money. He writes a deposit slip for the number of coupons he turns into the bank, and then writes a coupon check on his bank when he needs a fresh supply of meat. Meat rationing doubled the number of coupons put into circulation since the beginning of the war. A coupon will purchase a certain amount of meat per person per week, but does not guarantee the kind or cut. It sets a control on the amount of meat sold for home consumption. It sets a plan for organized distribution of the available supplies. The rationing plan depends for its success on cooperation between the butcher and the public. In the past, many Canadians ate more meat than was necessary for health. Meat, say the nutritionists, has a special job, that of building and repairing tissues. If more is eaten than is sufficient for the job, meat is being wasted, for it is being used to supply energy which bread or cereals could do equally well. An adequate supply for the people at home, but no luxury, no waste, no selfish rushing to buy other foods and so create further shortages, but stretching, yes, making each piece of meat go as far as possible, remembering that food saved today may mean life for the starving people of Europe tomorrow.